became a first-time father to a new baby. Congratulations.
Thank you.
And we want to know, has this changed your view at all on environmental issues or what you're focused on right now with San Francisco policy?
Yeah.
And what do you think will be the most pressing environmental issues for your child's generation?
Well, as I was just reflecting, I mean, nothing excites me more than thinking about standing there and fly fishing with my daughter, or going horseback riding up in Montana, or for that matter, throughout the remarkable state, California, that I've had the privilege of growing up in. I mean, this is a pretty extraordinary country. And a lot of the things that candidly we take for granted may not be around 20, 30, 40, 50 years from now. This is serious stuff. And it's not just climate change in the abstract as it relates to issues of polar ice caps. It's about the acuity of storms. It's about snowpacks. It's about rivers and dams that currently exist that may be overrun, and rivers that may be depleted, and salmon runs, and all these things that can just disappear after being around for millennia, after generations and generations. And right now we're creating the conditions where in our lifetime, conceivably, that is challenged, or those conditions are exacerbated. And so, no, I think about these things in very personal ways, as we all should be. And that's why I think it's important to get aggressive. Look, we have the most aggressive solar program in America. San Francisco, foggy San Francisco, has the highest per capita generation of solar in the state of California. We have the most aggressive green building standards in the United States of America. I mentioned the highest recycling rates. We also have been aggressive on alternative fuels. We have another fog program called fats, oils, and grease that we pick up from restaurants and hotels, and we convert it into biodiesel, not with corn-based ethanol to deal with food security and scarcity issues, but with real fats, oils, and grease from these restaurants. And that B20 is now in all of our buses in San Francisco. We've converted the entire diesel fleet. We have a requirement on taxi cabs. We're about to announce 50% of all our cabs are alternatively fueled taxi cabs, and we're well on our way to getting to 75% in the next year or so. We've been very aggressive in creating incentives for green-collar jobs, tax incentives to get these green tech companies back to San Francisco. And we are, in the spirit of my friend Van Jones, trying to make sure those that were locked out of the old industrial economy are locked into this new green economy by making sure the workforce training focus is there, particularly for people that are coming in and out of the criminal justice system, people living in areas that have been concentrated with poverty for generations, and beginning to reconcile, again, the issue of race, the issue of the economy, and the issue of the environment. This is the godsend, our opportunity to become, especially here in the United States and in California, the world's #1 economy in green technology, not as consumers, but obviously as producers, and start getting our manufacturing base moving again. And it has to start with government, regulation, and incentives. Regulation and incentives. Don't pick winners and losers, but create the regulations where you have a time frame where you know that these are the rules, and then create incentives to fast-track that and jumpstart it, and then get out of the way. And the ingenuity of Silicon Valley, the ingenuity of people watching all over this country, where it's limitless. And if we don't do this, China will, India will, EU will, former Eastern Bloc countries will. This is our opportunity. If we miss it, it will be at our peril. Not just my daughters, but all of us that are listening and watching. And so I just think we got to wake up and take advantage of this extraordinary moment in time. I'm immeasurably optimistic, nonetheless, recognize the challenges that lie in ahead of us.
Absolutely. For the next question, actually a question about some of those technologies we were speaking of. So just last week, San Francisco's electric vehicle program received a $1 million grant from the federal energy bill.
Yes.
And we want to know...
Not enough. Thank you, though, Nancy Pelosi.
There you go. So we want to know, what do you think is the most effective way to jumpstart this program and use it?
Look, I believe that the big game changer in the United States, if we're going to get serious about energy independence, I mean, forget the rhetoric. If you're serious about energy independence, if you're serious about changing the paradigm in terms of our foreign policy and our forays into these wars, which are absolutely unwinnable, just reasonably comedic, but immeasurably frustrating and vexing, I'm sure, for the president in terms of trying to reconcile these issues. If we're going to get serious about that and our dependency in terms of the politics of the status quo, then let's deal with energy independence by getting our cars to become electric. Hybrid technology is 1990s technology. Hybrids are yesterday's technology. Plug-in hybrids are tomorrow's technology, and pure electric is the real game changer. I speak and I practice. I had an EV1, I have a hybrid, which I'm not excited about, can't wait to get the plug-in version, and I have an electric car at home. I believe in this, but you got to create the infrastructure, and what we're trying to do is create a ubiquitous infrastructure for the electrical vehicles so that when these new plug-in hybrids come in, the Chevy Volt into San Francisco next year and others, that you have a place to charge them. Here's what we're doing. We're getting those great, by the way, right outside where I'm standing, you got all kinds of charging stations. We're putting them all out on our streets and sidewalks, not just in our garages. We're going to do free charging so you can actually just plug into a parking meter in San Francisco. It's called SF Park. You can go in and actually plug into our light poles. All of our electricity, by the way, or 95% of the electricity around us here is renewable, 100% green. If people are saying, oh, it's coal-based electricity, not here in San Francisco. It's all done through our renewable programs, Hitchhichi and our water system up in the Sierra Nevadas. So it's green energy. It's available. It's plentiful to the extent that we don't see 100% adaptation and adoption of electric vehicles. We can start scaling this. We've got to incentivize it. We need to standardize it, though. You need to make sure that we don't, in San Francisco, have electric plugs that have 110 volts, and then in Chicago, they're 220, and then out in New York, they're paddle technology like the old EV1s. You've got to standardize and have a regulatory framework in terms of creating that ubiquity of infrastructure, just as we do for gasoline. You don't have different nozzles outside of your city because Chevron in another jurisdiction said, well, the city council in San Jose actually wants to use fatter nozzles that don't work on your car. They standardized. So the same way you dealt with gas stations to deal with a limited range of cars, we need to deal with switch stations and charging stations to deal with the limited nature of electric vehicles. Standardize, build ubiquity, build out that infrastructure, partner with other cities, partner with the federal government with these grants, use these grants as demonstration projects, show that there's real potential of adaptation by having the infrastructure, and then incentivize the vehicles by incentivizing lower cost parking when you go into a parking garage, incentivize by reducing your residential parking permits as a municipality if you use an alternative car, and use it obviously in the state to get in one of those HOV lanes. There's all kinds of ways of incentivizing, even tax incentives beyond those, that can get people to start using these technologies and start enjoying them. So those are a few ways.
Yeah, great.
These are not short answers. Sorry, guys.
No, you're great. So at this point, we'd like to turn it over to Jill in New York for another question.
All right.
Yeah, we actually have another reader question that's about renewable energy. Currently, San Francisco gets about 12% of its energy from renewable sources. And we have a question that comes to us from Neil in San Francisco.
When do you think we could move towards a 100% renewable energy goal here in the city, at least in terms of our infrastructure and our public transit and related items? And are there any large-scale solar projects or wind projects in the work to get us there? And when could we realistically expect to reach 100% renewable energy?
2020. We've laid it out. We have a program called San Francisco Forward. My goal is carbon neutrality by 2020. We're on track. San Francisco has already rolled back its greenhouse gas emissions 5% below 1990 levels. We announced that almost a year ago, in September 2008. We had Carl Pope, the head of the Sierra Club, folks from NRDC, Environmental Defense, all out there on Crissy Field near the Golden Gate Bridge. We were one of the first cities in the United States to put all our greenhouse gas emissions to a third-party review. We actually gave it to the California Climate Registry. So I'm not asserting these principles. We can actually prove and point to that fact.